Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to Sunday morning services here at Central Unitarian Church in Westwood, New Jersey. I am Susan Springstead, a longtime member, and I always feel honored when asked to serve as a worship associate for one of our services. Our children, now in their 50s, grew up in this congregation, and in many ways, so did I and my husband, Harold. What we heard, and he and I continue to hear, learn, and practice, colored our actions far beyond these walls. During these troubling times, I am increasingly proud and privileged to belong to a liberal congregation where all ages are encouraged to consider the wisdom found in the rich diversity of spiritual ideas, individual expression, and sexual identity. Members and friends gather here each Sunday to worship, looking for inspiration, searching for hope, and renewing themselves in a community of like-hearted individuals. My glasses have not caught up with my cataracts, so. While our minister, the Reverend Andre Mahl, is on sabbatical, we have the very good fortune to be led in worship by the Reverend Mark Cutolo, whose sermon this morning is entitled, Sincerely Skeptical. He suggests that being skeptical can prevent us from putting our faith in nonsense. And we explore how our skepticism can be challenged in ways we can't explain. If you are visiting among us, and I see some people who have been here for a while, so welcome. Please make sure that you speak with one of our welcome hosts. They were giving out the programs as you entered. One is Jeff, and Carol Hoffman. See one of them after the service if you have the opportunity. If you're visiting online, please click on the chat at the bottom of your screen and follow the link to sign our guest book. For those here, there will be coffee, conversation, and connection in the same space right after the service. Coffee this chilly morning has been provided for us by Pastoral Care and Religious Education, now known as Family Faith Foundation. Right now, while I briefly remind you of some upcoming events, please take this moment to find and silence your cell phones and other beeping, chirping, singing electronic devices. This Wednesday, you are invited to join us here for a delicious soup lunch provided by the Reverend Mark. I am told that he is a superb soup maker. So mark your calendar to enjoy a free lunch and congenial conversation. Pastoral Care has set up a meal train to support Denise Adams during her recovery from shoulder surgery. So sign the flyer in the back on the table to be part of this group, or look for the link in our weekly newsletter. Our traditional Passover Seder is in 3 weeks on Saturday, April 29th, here at 4 o'clock. That's what I wrote. On Saturday, April 19th, here in this room. This meaningful event is coordinated by Pam Zeldin and Jeff Merrigan, and is open to all members and friends. You can tell Pam or Jeff today if you plan to attend, or fill out a form in our weekly newsletter. And last, in 3 weeks, on April 19th, again, CUC's once-a-year fundraiser, Spring Fling, will begin at 7 p.m. and run online for a week. Have you thought about what you might donate? Donation forms are available online. Also, Jeff asked me to remind you, Jeff, you hear that name several times now? Jeff reminds you that you can see him if you would like to make your pledge. You can also see him about the Passover dinner. So he's available. And if you're new, please see Jeff. He'll be surrounded by a group of people. I think Rev Mark has one other announcement.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, everyone. It's really good to be with you today. So today I'd like to share with you a few announcements. First, I trust that you have received and read the memo to the church, which was distributed on Friday afternoon. If you have any questions or comments about it, you're welcome to speak with me or to any of our trustees. Second, I want to share with you an important update that was not included in the memo, as I received that information after it was published. Our beloved Director of Family Faith Formation, Allie Weschler, has announced her resignation to the board, effective April 12th, due to concerns about her safety in light of the publicity from the far-right CUC has received on social media. It is with a very heavy heart that I share this news with you, and I know it will be received with the same sadness and concern by many of you. Third, I want to share with you an email that Dolores and I received on Thursday, March 20th, from Reverend Mole, who wrote to us spontaneously to share some updates from her sabbatical and to let us know that we are on her mind. Though her note was written before the most current events, her note both acknowledges and anticipates in some ways the context in which we find ourselves. So Reverend Mole wrote this. Dear beloveds of CUC, I am now halfway through my sabbatical period with just a little more than 2 months left to go. I happily celebrated my 50th birthday a few weeks ago. Thank you to those who posted birthday wishes on my Facebook page. I am currently in a cabin in the woods in the Green Mountains of Vermont, near where the poet Robert Frost lived, wrote, and taught every summer for over 40 years. I've spent the week in solitude, meditating, hiking, and working on my book about transgender icon Sylvia Rivera. I am grateful to all of you for respecting the boundaries of the sabbatical and allowing me to remain disconnected from CUC, especially at this time. I am also immensely grateful for the practice within our faith tradition of allowing our ministers to disconnect and reboot so that we may return to our jobs renewed and inspired. I am finding much joy reconnecting with my spiritual practices and focusing on some radical self-care during this time away. I am also finding deep wisdom in my book project as I spend much of my time with individuals from LGBTQ history who, by necessity, learned how to survive and thrive in a world that did not recognize their worth. For so many of them, as with others in our history, fighting for their rights was equivalent to fighting for their lives. I miss you all. I have been thinking of you often, especially given the continuous stream of shocking news that arrives each day since the inauguration in January. The executive orders, the deportations, the dismantling of vital institutions, and many other disturbing shifts toward authoritarian power. So many people I know are angry and scared. Those of us personally impacted by these changes feel under attack. People are asking what they can do. People are also planning and organizing for a future we do not want, but one we appear to be facing. One with a completely different legal, economic, and international landscape than we have known and come to expect. I know none of this is news to you. But know that even though I am away, I'm spending much of my time in contemplation as I witness the impacts of our current political landscape. What do we do when the very times we live in demonstrate a definitive backlash against the progressive gains we fought so hard to achieve over the last century? What do we as a congregation need to keep doing, stop doing, or start doing in order to best care for our wider community and ourselves during this time? I have been considering these questions on my hikes, through my book project, and through conversations with those close to me. I already know that I will return in June with some of my own answers to these questions. But more importantly, I will be eager to hear your own answers as well as your own questions. As with many of the shifts we've already faced together during my time at CUC, we will minister to each other to navigate a new future together. I continue to keep all of you in my prayers, even while I am away. I look forward to being back together with you in June. With love and care, Reverend Andre.
Thank you, Mark. We are all glad to hear from Andre. Now, as we formally begin our service, please turn to someone near you or across the room and extend a warm welcome.
Greetings, sir.
And one of the people I forgot to acknowledge this morning is that we do have a very welcome visitor, Erin Collins from, please stand, from the Town Council, who's here to join us.
The opening words are attributed to Quetzalcoatl, a figure from the ancient Aztec pantheon. Offer only lovely things on my altars, the bread of life, and jewels and feathers and flowers. Let the stream of life flow in peace. Turn from violence. Learn to think for a long time on how to change this world, how to make it a better place for us to live in. All the people in the world ought to talk about it and speak well of it always. Then it will last forever, and the flowers will bloom forever, and I will come to you again. And now I invite those who are gathered here in person to rise in body or spirit for our opening hymn.
Please join me in saying our chalice lighting words, which reflect the vision that we have articulated for our future. We light this chalice to remind us of our dreams, to nourish our heart, mind, and spirit, to work towards a better world for all. to embrace the whole of our human experience, to honor our past and our gifts of the present, to create a community where each of us may find healing, transformation, and hope. It is important to remember that we are not alone. Our lives are built and shared commitments, giving and receiving from one another. This congregation is a place where we intentionally practice shared living, where we focus on interdependence, even while living in a culture that focuses on independence. Contributing to our congregation or our congregational finances is one of the only ways, or one of the many ways, that we acknowledge our interdependence. We pause each week to recognize this particular form of sharing, each of us giving what we can, when we can, to support our mission and vision. Your contribution, whether it is large or small, helps each one of us to grow, to serve, and most importantly, to live our lives centered on love. Our morning offering will now be gratefully accepted. Please join me in dedicating this morning's gifts to support our mission. We dedicate these gifts in the service of our mission to welcome all into a home of spiritual diversity that challenges us to be our best selves, to minister to one another in love, and to serve the greater community.
We now pause to take a moment to share our joys and sorrows. We do this each week as a way of caring for one another. We invite you to share the joys and sorrows you hold in your heart today. If you are online, you may do so by entering that information in the chat box. Those of you here in person may have already lit a candle and submitted a joy or sorrow, which I will read. We will also offer a moment for those here to share out loud the names of those you are holding in your heart today. So let us quiet ourselves in order to enter that holy space of listening and of breathing in a breath of life and breathing out a breath of peace. Now I invite you to share out loud the names of anyone else you are holding in your heart today. We hold these cares, joys, and concerns in our hearts, as well as those that remain unspoken. And now, would you please join me in a moment for meditation? While sitting down where you are, be aware of your feet grounded on the floor. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath in, scanning your entire body up and down from your toes to the top of your head, then back down again while breathing out. As you inhale and exhale, breathe deep into your chest so your belly fills with the air. When exhaling, control the air as it leaves your lungs. At this time, make breathing in and out your only responsibility. Listen to your breath as it goes in and out of your nose. Feel it as it fills your lungs. Control it as your lungs empty. Continue to do this for 1 minute. At the end of that portion of the meditation, I will continue with the text of today's spoken meditation, after which we will continue with another moment of silent meditation. One day, there passed by a company of cats a wise dog. And as he came near and saw that the cats were very intent and heeded him not, the wise dog stopped. Then there arose in the midst of the company a large grave cat, and looked upon them and said, Brethren, pray ye. And when ye have prayed again and yet again, nothing doubting, verily, then it shall rain mice. And when the dog heard this, he laughed in his heart, and turned from them, saying, O blind and foolish cats, has it not been written, and have I not known, and my fathers before me, that which reigneth for prayer and faith and supplication is not mice, but bones. And that concludes this moment of meditation. And of course, we'll sing a hymn now. What is the number? Oh, good question. Let's see.
94.
94.
A reading from the 14th chapter of the book of Proverbs, starting at the 15th verse. A gullible person believes everything, but a sensible person watches his step. Gullible people are gifted with stupidity, but sensible people are crowned with knowledge. Here ends the reading.
One characteristic that our culture has contempt for is gullibility. No one wants to be perceived as being a gullible person, and we tend to be critical of those who we perceive to be gullible. As a culture, we recognize the importance of having good critical thinking skills, and we encourage students to think for themselves. Schools often stress the importance of questioning sources and verifying information because being easily misled is understandably considered an undesirable trait. In our culture, it's also considered normal for adults to have a healthy amount of skepticism of one's leaders, whether political leaders, faith leaders, or even bosses. In the media we consume, characters in films, TV shows, or cartoons who are overly trusting are often portrayed as naive, and someone who falls for an obvious scam is depicted as the butt of the joke. Audiences are critical of characters who are easily fooled. On social media, internet culture is full of memes and viral videos that mock those who believe in hoaxes or misinformation. We also make moral judgments of those who are perceived as gullible, because being gullible is equated with a lack of intelligence or personal responsibility. How often have you heard phrases that induce shame, like, "You should have known better," or "You really fell for that"? Whether you call it being gullible or being deceived, we all know that it's important to have good critical thinking skills when it comes to the area of religion. I suspect all of us gathered here found ourselves in a congregation like this because not many other faiths are as tolerant of asking critical questions as ours is. I'm sure we can all recall numerous unfortunate examples from American history, particularly recent history, where gullibility and deception played a central role in religious scandals. Who could forget the 1978 scandal involving Jim Jones and the People's Temple, whose followers were convinced to move to a communal settlement in Guyana in hopes of living in a utopia? Instead, it became a site of manipulation, abuse, and eventually mass murder-suicide when over 900 people died by drinking poison punch in the tragedy known as the Jonestown Massacre. We still use the phrase "drinking the Kool-Aid" in our culture to denote someone who has accepted an idea uncritically, often to the person's detriment. And who can forget in the 1980s when Jim and Tammy Faye Banker and their Praise the Lord Club grew into a media empire, raising millions from viewers through donations. Baker was later found to have misused those funds for personal luxury and to silence allegations of sexual misconduct. Following his 1989 fraud conviction and prison sentence, public awareness of faith-based corruption and the misuse of religious fundraising increased significantly. Because of these and many, many other religious scandals, it's considered mainstream in our society for people to be very critical of both religious beliefs and religious institutions. For some people, they would even consider someone who has any sort of religious beliefs to be considered gullible because of how much evidence there is for the opposite point of view. Nearly all religious beliefs are not able to be verified by using the scientific method, and accepting a religious belief without any proof that it is true is irrational for many people. Of course, It is important to think critically about religious beliefs and to have a healthy skepticism for religious institutions, which, despite their divine missions, are still run by fallible humans who aren't always as sincere or moral as their ethical code of conduct would make you believe. Having said that, what is also sometimes true is that despite our best efforts to maintain a coherent, logical, and rational point of view that is consistent with the best information we have about the natural world as we currently understand it, the truth is that sometimes people have personal experiences which challenge their rationality and force them to make room for something more mysterious in their worldview. Today I'm going to share with you two examples that I came across of people who have had to do exactly this and how they made sense of their experiences. One anecdote I came across came from an article in Scientific American magazine written by Michael Shermer, who was the founding publisher of Skeptic magazine and who has published several books about skepticism and about debunking pseudoscientific and supernatural claims. In his article, he shared a deeply personal story that challenged his skeptical worldview in the context of an event that occurred just before his wedding to his fiancée Jennifer, who had recently moved from Germany to the United States to be with him. Jennifer was raised by her mother, and her grandfather Walter was the closest thing that she had to a father figure in her life. And she was deeply saddened when he died when she was 16 years old. Before she got married, and as she prepared to move from Germany to the U.S., she mailed some boxes to the States, including some artifacts connected to her grandfather. But the only one which made it intact was her late grandfather's 1978 transistor radio, which held sentimental value despite having long been non-functional. Both Shermer and a professional repair technician attempted to fix the radio, but with no luck, so it just remained silent in a drawer. On the day of their wedding, Jennifer was feeling the bittersweet absence of her family, particularly her late grandfather. While Shermer and Jennifer were alone in the house, preparing for their ceremony, they were startled to hear music coming from the bedroom. Investigating the source, they discovered that the sound was emanating from the very same radio that had been completely silent for years. Not only was the radio playing music, it was playing romantic love songs. Jennifer immediately interpreted the event as a sign from her grandfather, saying tearfully, "My grandfather is here with us. I'm not alone." The radio continued to play music throughout the rest of that day and well into the night, continuing its playlist of romantic love songs, which added a sense of magic and profound connection to an already meaningful occasion. However, the next day, the radio stopped working once again and hadn't made any noise ever since. Despite being a committed skeptic, Shermer admitted that the incident had a powerful effect on him, writing, quote, "Had it happened to someone else, I might suggest a chance electrical anomaly and the law of large numbers as an explanation. With billions of people having billions of experiences every day, there's bound to be a handful of extremely unlikely events that stand out in their timing and meaning. In any case, such anecdotes do not constitute scientific evidence that the dead survive or that they can communicate with us via electronic equipment." Jennifer is as skeptical as I am when it comes to paranormal and supernatural phenomena. Yet, the eerie conjunction of these deeply evocative events gave her the distinct feeling that her grandfather was there and that the music was his gift of approval. I have to admit, it rocked me back on my heels and shook my skepticism to its core as well. I savored the experience more than the explanation. The emotional interpretations of such anomalous events grant them significance regardless of their causal account. And if we are to take seriously the scientific credo to keep an open mind and remain agnostic when the evidence is indecisive or the riddle unsolved, we should not shut the doors of perception when they may be open to us to marvel in the mysterious." End quote. Michael Shermer cannot explain why what happened to him, and he's not inclined to invoke a God of the gaps argument, but he does have an appreciation for the fact that the event did happen, whatever the reason. Similarly, the late American writer and political activist Barbara Ehrenreich, best known for her book Nickel and Dimed on Not Getting By in America, also identified as a skeptic, but had also written about experiences which she'd had that she can't explain, but that she wished she could. Ehrenreich was raised as an atheist, and her family had been atheists since the 19th century. According to family lore, one of her 19th century ancestors, an impoverished Irish-American woman in Montana, rejected the church with fierce conviction, and as she lay dying in childbirth, she adamantly refused last rites, setting a precedent for generations to come. Ehrenreich felt that she carried forward that tradition by pursuing a career in chemistry and cellular immunology. Following the scientific method, she understood the world as the interaction of tiny particles and predictable mathematical forces. In that worldview, there are no gods, no spirits, only the relentless curiosity of our minds grappling with the vast unknown. Despite this clearly defined worldview, when she was 17 years old, she had a profound experience which she'd been trying to make sense of ever since, and which she wrote about in her book, Living with a Wild God, a non-believer's search for the truth about everything. One morning in 1959, as she stepped out alone onto the streets in the California town where she went with her friends on a ski vacation, she noticed that the world around her, including the mountains, the sky, the modest buildings, they all suddenly ignited with an intense, inexplicable vibrancy. She noted that she saw no visions nor heard any voices. Rather, she simply experienced something akin to an overwhelming blaze, everywhere, all at once. It felt as though something immense poured into her as she poured into it. She is clear that this experience was not some sort of serene union with the all, as described by Eastern mystics. Instead, she described it as a fierce, living force surging through everything, too vast to contain and too achingly beautiful to release. In that moment, it seemed that everything, whether fragile or grand, was destined to be consumed and unified in the flame. She felt ecstatic and whole, yet utterly undone. In the absence of other explanations for her unusual experience, she'd wondered if she'd had a psychotic break from reality. We know that traditionally, psychiatry has often dismissed those with mystical insights as mentally ill. The ancient shaman could be reinterpreted as the villager with schizophrenia, or Saint Teresa of Avila could be labeled manic. The Delphic oracles could be explained as being under the influence of vaporous intoxicants. And perhaps we could say that the Christian mystics have shown signs of temporal lobe epilepsy. A study from Harvard Medical School has even suggested that the revelations of figures like Abraham, Moses, Jesus, and Paul could be best explained by psychotic disorders linked to mood or neurological conditions. So, by the time that she was middle-aged, Ehrenreich began to entertain other, less pathological explanations for her experience. While still identifying as an atheist, she wondered if maybe there's another layer of reality, or another dimension of consciousness, which one day science will know more about, just as doctors had once thought illness spreads through miasma, until they discovered that there were, in fact, invisible living organisms that we call germs in the air and on surfaces which infect people. Reflecting on her mature interpretation of her teenage experience, she wrote, quote, "Without invoking anything supernatural, we may be ready to acknowledge that we are not, after all, alone in the universe. There is no evidence for a god or gods, least of all caring ones, but our mystical experiences give us tantalizing glimpses of other forms of consciousness, which may be beings of some kind, ordinarily invisible to us and our instruments. Or it could be that the universe is itself pulsing with a kind of life and capable of bursting into something that looks to us momentarily like the flame," end quote. Ehrenreich did not attribute her experience to the supernatural, but she found the image of a flame to be the most fitting way to describe it. The flame evokes powerful imagery from various traditions. The burning bush through which Moses heard the voice of Yahweh, or the tongues of fire said to have descended upon Jesus' apostles, mystically enabling them to speak every language. Flames often appear in mystical and religious contexts, and we Unitarian Universalists are no strangers to this symbol. Each week, as part of our central ritual, we light and extinguish the flaming chalice, a symbol open to many interpretations, one of the most cherished of which is that it represents the light of reason. Few faith traditions emphasize reason as strongly as ours. As Unitarian Universalists, we embrace humanist teachings which counsel us to heed the guidance of reason and the results of science, and warn against idolatries of the mind and spirit. Yet we also recognize that there is more to our experience than what reason alone can grasp. Shakespeare captured this tension beautifully in Hamlet, which says, "There are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophy." This balance, reverence for reason, alongside openness to life's mysteries, is one of our unique gifts as a faith tradition. As UUs, we hold space for the mysterious ways the spirit of life moves among us, while steadfastly avoiding gullibility and embracing the clarity that reason provides.
And now, will you join me in repeating our chalice extinguishing words as we renew our covenant with each other? We extinguish this chalice flame, but not our promise to each other, to act with grace, to hold each other in love, to serve this community. This promise of the heart serves as a reminder of how we live together. May it bring joy to our collective lives. And now, will you rise as you are able for our closing hymn, number 88?
As we come to the end of our time together, our closing words are by the 20th century Unitarian Universalist minister, John Brigham. Go your ways, knowing not the answer to all things, yet seeking always the answer to one more thing than you know.
Thank you, Matt. So all you motherless children may now gather for coffee, and remember to sign the sign-up sheet for Denise Adams' meal train, and check about the Seder with Jeff, or renew your pledge with Jeff, or anything else?
Spring Fling.
Oh, Spring Fling, yes. Remember to give a donation to Spring Fling so that we have something to bid on.
Talk to Brooke and me.
You can talk to Brooke or to Robin, and I think you know who they are.
Thank you.